Fields is going to at least at bare minimum have a real shot to start. But, you look.
KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader. Dub Nation. Time for the real and inside story on Warriors basketball.
Curry sidestep, Curry drive, Curry flip, Curry good!
This is Dubs OT with John Dickinson on KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live at twitch.tv/the sports leader.
San Antonio, if you are not on your game, any team in the NBA can get you. And when you've got maybe the greatest coach of all time and certainly the most wins, Greg Popovich got it done. Same two teams on Monday. Disappointing homestand for the Dubs. And any kind of elevation in the Western standings, they let two games slip away that are going to cost the Warriors in a big way.
Yeah, they do. As we welcome you in here, it is Dubs OT with JD here on KNBR, the sports leader. Spurs get the job done over the Warriors tonight as they win it over at Chase, 126-113. And it was basically a San Antonio domination from start to finish in this one, as they led by as many as 21. And the Warriors really with no answer defensively as the game went on. And it winds up being an ugly, ugly night at Chase. No Steph Curry, no wins for the Golden State Warriors. So we are out here at Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City, where it is a little bit more of a somber affair, given what you heard Fitz say there, and I'll just echo it. On NBC Sports Bay Area, this is a really bad homestand for the Warriors and full of missed opportunities. We talked after the win on Wednesday against the Bucks how, to basically make that win stand up, they had to win not only the game tonight, but the game against Chicago, and the Warriors wind up winning neither of those games. And so you lose Steph Curry on Thursday night. That's a big part of the equation tonight. But it's just another, marker toward just how much this team struggles without Stephen Curry. Now 0-4 on the season, and this season is not last season. Last season the Warriors were 14-12 without Steph Curry. A big part of that was Jordan Poole, who's now in Washington. And, the Warriors just got outworked tonight. It is a reminder that this team, and I pointed this out on social media, and I think it's probably an unpopular opinion, but for the Warriors to show up tonight at Chase Center and look at this San Antonio team like they could, without Stephen Curry, just show up and win the game with basically a C-plus effort. I mean, did you not watch him play in Sacramento a couple of nights ago? And are you that unaware of your own talent level? I mean, I'm just going to put it out there. Like this Warriors team without Steph Curry would struggle to win 25, 30 games in an 82-game season. And so, the talent level on display between these two teams, I think, was a lot closer than people would think on paper. And look, I still think top to bottom the Warriors are a better team than San Antonio, but to think that you can just win by showing up and kind of going through the motions is really unacceptable. And for a good chunk of the game, the Warriors got completely outworked as well. So stop by, say hi, enjoy a Kolsch here on a Saturday as I'm doing. Appreciate it. We've got Julia and Grace working things here at Harmonic tonight, but much more of a somber atmosphere following San Antonio's 126-113 victory over the Warriors. So 808 KNBR is the number. 808 KNBR is the number here to join the conversation. The Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line is open. As always, we got people in the YouTube chat, and people continue to file in here to the YouTube chat. But we'll have a question of the night for you, which is going to be coming up here between now and about 9:30 as we keep things moving here on KNBR, the sports leader. But this is a rough one. This is a tough one. And, same two teams on Monday in San Antonio, and I don't think anybody's going to be thinking through the weekend like that game's going to be any level of a picnic. The Warriors did get good news on Stephen Curry in terms of might only be out 2 games. on the short end, might only be out 4 games on the long end of the spectrum. But the Warriors have to figure out how to win a game or 2 in the meantime, and tonight just goes to show you that this team can literally lose to anybody in the NBA when they don't have Steph Curry participating. We've got Greg Silver back in our San Francisco studios as well. Welcome to you tonight, Greg, here on again, I'm going to keep calling it a somber Saturday night where the Warriors really played a very poor game. Steve Kerr made a lineup decision that I found to be curious. I know San Antonio does start pretty big, but they started Trace Jackson-Davis, put Kuminga at the 3, kept Klay Thompson off the bench, and it didn't work. And for as good as Jonathan Kuminga was in the fourth quarter, he did have 19 points in the fourth quarter. He was, and really all of the Warriors' young players were bad in this game tonight in their own way. Kuminga came out, took a couple of jumpers right off the top, and this really was the game where, when Kuminga took jumpers and settled, he was bad. When he got all the way to the bucket, offensively, he was pretty good. Defensively, it was a dreadful night for everybody, and it was apparent right off the top, Greg, that this Warriors team just didn't have enough shooting in the starting lineup. They were missing free throws. And again, the no Curry Warriors with just very little offense. Klay Thompson hit a buzzer-beating 3, but they shot 9 of 22 and 3 of 9 from 3 in the first quarter. It could have been worse if Klay hadn't gotten going. But as the game went on, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, it turned out to be the defense that really wound up being the problem. Kind of an all-systems fail in a lot of ways for the Warriors tonight. But just an ugly home loss. But, again, it goes to show, no Steph Curry, all games become fair game, and the Warriors got bit by that in this one tonight as San Antonio wins it.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening to you, JD. Let me ask you a question. It's not a trick question, and it's a rhetorical question. Do you know why the Warriors of this season are capable of beating a Boston in overtime or beating a Milwaukee by 35 points or beating a Phoenix in a thriller? Well, that's because they have one of the all-time great players in the history of basketball on their team. Do you also know why this team loses at home to a Spurs team without Devin Vassell and Victor Wembanyama, loses to a Chicago Bulls team that is incredibly underwhelming when they're finally getting some momentum, loses to a Grizzlies team that has just about all of their starters and stars out? It's because if that said player, who is transcendent and generational and once in a lifetime, doesn't play A to A+ basketball, this team is not very good. And you're not going to fool me with Jonathan Kuminga's stat line tonight. Moses Moody was completely asleep until late third quarter. Andrew Wiggins, I know he's playing through something personal, very ineffective. Trace Jackson-Davis and Brandon Podziemski, big opportunity for them to step up. I saw a lot of cruise control. I know those were the words you used to me. I thought that was a good way to describe it. Draymond was kind of ineffective. And if your name isn't Klay Thompson, where were you?
No doubt about it. And look, I'm just going to address this at the top because I've already got a couple of people. Bill M. Kuminga was not horrible. JD always Kuminga was horrible the first 3 quarters. Kuminga was awful the first 3 quarters. That's just reality. He had 19 in the fourth quarter. He was good and aggressive in the fourth quarter. He gets his flowers for doing that. It gave the Warriors a semblance of a chance. There was a couple of moments there where the Warriors looked like maybe they were going to make a run, and Jonathan Kuminga would have been a big part of that run, but they couldn't get enough defensive stops. I mean, they couldn't get, and when they did get a defensive stop, they couldn't get the rebound, and San Antonio would just kick it out, and it just was brutal. And so, but I want to get that out. The young players were not good tonight. It happens again, but without Stephen Curry, you're going to be more dependent on those young players to be able to have to kind of carry you. And you look up, and it was just not Not a good night, really, for anybody. I think you're spot on about Wiggins. I thought Wiggins' energy was okay, but his game was not there with it.
Yeah,
and
it was okay,
it really was.
Though. Like, I don't want to say his energy was good. It was okay.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was okay in the first half. Like, again, look, you just lost to a team that's 14-50 now. Which is basically, if you remember, 14-50. The Warriors were 15-50 when everything shut down 4 years ago on March 11th. So the Warriors basically just got beat at home by a team that's akin to the 2019-2020 Warriors. And so yeah, it was ugly. It was all systems. Again, tonight is not to come out here and scream about associating blame. I mean, it was. But I don't think anybody other than Klay Thompson is absolved in this game. And Klay did have 27, 8 of 16, and 5 of 10 from 3. And look, without Steph Curry, the Warriors didn't have enough shooting. And the part that I did find more surprising, though, in this one as the game went on was, the Spurs put up 4 30-point quarters. They went 32-30, 34-30 on the Warriors and were just really comfortable the whole game, and the Warriors were over-helping defensively again. They were allowing three-point shots to be wide open, and I don't care, Greg, what the story is as far as the Spurs and what they shoot. I don't care that they shoot 34.8% from three during the season. When you're getting wide open look after wide open look after wide open look, these are still NBA players, and they're going to knock down a higher percentage of those shots if they're wide open. Now, maybe it's not 51.5 and 17 of 33, but the Warriors have made some poor three-point shooting teams look like really good three-point shooting teams, and it's not always that it's bad luck. It's not always that the opposition is having a hot night that just for some random reason. A lot of it has to do with bad defense. And I think we got to put that right on the table. Like, it isn't some mystery as to why some of these teams shoot better against the Warriors from deep than they do against the rest of the league. So I think we have to stop looking at it like it's some kind of, I don't know what's going on. I mean, the Spurs are usually terrible. Well, if you're not playing any defense, you're going to give a team a better chance to have a hot night, even if they aren't overall a hot shooting team. So the Warriors, I thought, did that tonight. And again, it just goes to show, what this team basically is without Stephen Curry, which is a team that you can't count on. And tonight solidifies it. You can't count on this Warriors team, Greg, to beat any team in the NBA if Steph Curry's not playing. That goes for tonight. It goes for Monday. It sure as hell goes for a game against Dallas on Wednesday and the Lakers a week from tonight. I mean, I know you put it out on social media. Like, can Steph Curry get reevaluated tomorrow? Because the Warriors stand a real good chance to get to be 0-4 if he winds up having to miss the next three. And look, I'll give him a shot to go in and play a much better game in San Antonio. Spurs coming back off a road trip. I think the Warriors will definitely play a lot harder in the game on Monday in San Antonio, knowing that they have to try and get one back after dropping these last two. So I would anticipate a much better effort. But guess what? Victor Wembanyama might be playing in that game for San Antonio on Monday. So a better effort won't necessarily lead to similar results for the Warriors in that game. But it drives me crazy, the constant hand-wringing over, well, I don't understand why these teams are hot. I don't understand. It's because they're getting wide-open looks off of really bad defense. And the Warriors also overhelp so much, Greg, to where when the shots are missed, a lot of times, I know the Warriors have been a good rebounding team, but a lot of times in those scramble situations, when you're trying to come back in a game, they're out of position for the rebound, and that's why another team that's coming in and really, hustling and outworking you can get the jump for some big extra possessions. And we saw San Antonio do that as the Warriors were trying to mount some semblance of a comeback in the fourth quarter with Kuminga going off for the 19. But it ended up being the stops and the inability to rebound.
Well, you're taking the words right out of my mouth when it comes to the opposition making three-point baskets. I don't want to hear anything about, the Spurs just couldn't miss. First of all, when it happens to many teams that shoot well and above their averages on the perimeter against you, at some point, it's not a coincidence. Maybe it's you stink at defending the perimeter. And by the way, even if the Spurs were hot and some of those shots that they made were contested and they got a couple of rolls or whatever, so what? This is the NBA. These are pro basketball players, and sometimes that happens. Like, I am not going to stick with the, the Spurs just did get hot. Sure, they were a little hot. You know what else they were? Trying way harder than the Warriors for 36 minutes of the game. Like, it never, ever, ever felt, JD, like it's an even game where the Warriors weren't making their shots, but the Spurs were. It felt like a 20-point beatdown pretty much start to finish, if I'm being honest.
It really was. I mean, they got outworked. In the first quarter, the Warriors didn't have enough offense, and that was apparent. I didn't love I loved, we talked about it on Just Dubs. Anybody and everybody knew Chris Paul was going to start. I thought, putting Trace Jackson-Davis out there in theory because the Spurs start so big made some sense because Chris Paul and TJD have that chemistry, and he's a lob threat, and it allows for, Chris Paul to get him involved. And maybe it takes a little bit of heat off of Draymond early from having to play the center spot. But you kick Kuminga to the three, which I also said pregame I thought was an opportunity for Kuminga to look to be more aggressive. I thought they actually were clearing the deck out for him to really look to score. And again, and there's a few people that are going back and forth in the chat on this. They didn't have enough shooting. That's the number one point that I wanted to make about that starting group. You still probably should have, even if you were going to start TJD, you probably still should have started Klay Thompson because you need the added shooting. And Podziemski at this stage of his career, you just don't know whether you're going to get it from a shooting perspective from him. And he was 2 for 7 tonight. And, Klay, if he had been on a heater, and nobody knows if he had been because his numbers have been better lately coming off the bench, but if Klay's on a heater early and you've got the lob threat and you've got maybe Kuminga looking to go and you've got Chris Paul running the show, like maybe you would have had a little bit of action offensively there. But I thought the defense set everything back. I thought the offense actually set everything back in the first quarter, and then as the game went on, the defense just got worse and worse, and the Spurs got more confidence, and they were knocking everything down. As far as the Kuminga part of him playing the three, it's funny because we've had, Greg, a little back and forth in the chat here to start the show, and I think our buddy Drew Down had said, Kuminga, he thought Kuminga would be super aggressive, being, basically the number one option. And the reality was he was kind of timid. But here's the thing. Kuminga being aggressive in Kuminga's mind is looking to shoot more jumpers. It's looking to be more of a multifaceted scorer. Like I think Kuminga looked at tonight, Greg, as I'm playing the three. They need me to score a lot and be kind of the number one option. So I'm going to look to get it done in a different way than I typically get it done, which is head down, go to the basket, look to drive, look to get fouled. Basically, the way that he played in the fourth quarter is the way offensively he needed to play in the first quarter. And in the first quarter, he was settling for the pull-up jumpers, and he was just kind of, not moving aggressively, a little bit in slow motion. And that ain't it. Like, that Kuminga is not. Maybe he gets there. Bill M had said, he's got a nice shot from the mid-range. Maybe it will get there in a couple of years, but it's not there now. And every one of those little 15-foot jumpers that Kuminga takes is playing right into the hands of what the defense wants him to do. So that I think Kuminga's version, though, and you can agree or disagree, Greg, but I think his version of being more aggressive was actually looking to do it in a different way as opposed to looking to do it in the way that he's been most successful, which was basically put that fourth quarter on loop where it's all going to the basket and it's all playing incredibly fast. He even created, I thought, for a couple of his teammates in the fourth quarter. Again, I don't want to overstate the fourth quarter, but if you come out and set the tone that way in the first quarter, then you put the Spurs on their heels, and maybe they don't build up the confidence that they had the whole game. And again, I want to be clear. I'm not putting this game on Kuminga. Everybody was bad. It's as always a learning experience. But don't tell me Kuminga had a good game tonight. I'm with you on that. He had a good fourth quarter, but he did not have a good game. And even that fourth quarter, because the Warriors couldn't get stops, and he was a part of that on the other end, and couldn't get rebounds, even because of that good fourth quarter, they never really truly threatened. They got to a point where it felt like they were going to threaten, but they never actually did.
Yeah, I had a good little back and forth discussion on social media in the first half, and I was basically saying, is it okay to talk about how Kuminga is resoundingly less effective as a 3, parentheses, the position he started in, and taking jumpers than when he's slashing inside, or is that too sensitive of a topic? Now, obviously, do not care if it was too sensitive of a topic for some people. I did have a good reply to a different response, though, and they were saying, like, they were kind of in agreement of, yes, when Kuminga is going to have extra eyes on him because there is no Steph, and he is the second best offensive player behind Steph for the majority of this season. I mean, you know, you've had some Clay nights like tonight, but by and large, it's been Jonathan Kuminga. And it's not an indictment on Jonathan Kuminga's game. It's just a comment on where he is at the age of 21. This isn't saying this is what Jonathan Kuminga is. This isn't saying they should have traded him. This isn't saying he's overrated. It's just saying that where he presently is and where this Warriors team presently is, Jonathan Kuminga is a very effective slasher. He can get to the line, and he doesn't really have a shot. And his game is resoundingly worse when he thinks to be a jump shooter first and do it in that different kind of way. So I think he had a nice fourth quarter. I am with you that this is not a game that's on Jonathan Kuminga. I thought he at least woke up, whereas some of the other players on this team were pretty trash throughout the entire night. So it was just a really disappointing effort, and I think it was more, hey, this is a comment on people who think that Kuminga is already a superstar. He's not. I don't even think he's a number 2 option on a playoff team, if I'm just being honest. That's not saying I don't want that for him. I just think, and you look at tonight, it's harder to convince me, yeah, Kuminga's he's a reliable number 2 in a playoff team behind Steph.
Yeah, and look, unfortunately, the Warriors have no choice based on the way that they've been able to have their most success this season. They have no choice but to keep putting him in that position to be because it's where they've been their most successful. So you let the chips fall where they may. It's not his fault that he's basically been forced to be the number 2. And honestly, the Warriors have won a lot of games with him as the number 2. So I don't even think we need to go, or at least I don't even need to go down that road for the purposes of the conversation for tonight. I just think, you know, tonight would have been a night where he could have, against, you know, how often do we talk against like talent, right? Young talent. The Spurs have a lot of young talent, not necessarily cobbled together enough to be able to win at this particular point in time. But I look at, you know, tonight is the kind of game where he has the ability to, you know, really put an imprint on the game and be impactful and you know, the pressure free. He doesn't have to be the one, right? He doesn't have to think of it like he has to be the one, but it's just keep doing what you're doing. And I thought in the fourth quarter he kept doing what he was doing. I thought early in the game he didn't. Let's get into some of the other players. And 808 KNBR is the number as well. If you want to join Dubs OT with JD, John Dickinson here. We're live at Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City. Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line is open as well. It's 808 415-808-5627, 415-808-5627 as the Spurs beat the Curryless Warriors tonight, 126-113. So Golden State now 33-30. They've dropped 2 in a row. They are now 17-17 on the season at home, which just flat out, straight up, is not good enough. They're back to 10th in the West. They're a game back of the Lakers now, who are 9th. They're a game and a half back of Dallas, actually 2.5 back of Dallas in 8th, and they are 3.5 back of both Phoenix and Sacramento. Sacramento has eked into the 6th spot for tonight. They eke back into the 6th spot because the Suns lost at home tonight on ABC to the Boston Celtics down in the Valley. So just kind of, you know, some other general thoughts on this game tonight. I thought the Warriors' best available lineup would have been the lineup in which Steve Kerr started the second quarter. And he started CP3 with Clay, Wiggins, Kuminga, and Draymond Green. I thought that was the five-man group that had the most potential to lead the Warriors in this game. And then Klay Thompson picked up his third foul less than a freaking minute into that quarter. And Steve Kerr had to go off script, and he had to go off script to Lester Quinones, who, shout out, we talked about the fact that Lester Quinones was going to play in this game tonight earlier today on Just Dubs on the KNBR YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter streams. But the second quarter, I thought, was really when the Spurs started to impose their will and the Warriors started to get outworked. And, the Warriors found themselves down 18 with about 4 minutes to go before halftime. Kerr went back to Klay Thompson, and Klay tried to spark a little run, hit a couple of buckets. But the Spurs, and this was really the story of the second, third, and fourth quarters in this game, Greg, the Spurs had an answer for every run. I said at halftime I would have started Chris Paul, Klay Thompson, Wiggins, Kuminga, and Draymond, that group that started the second. I would have started the third. Kerr did pull Trace Jackson-Davis and added Klay Thompson, who was the best Warriors player in the first half. He did make that. And then Kuminga, got a dunk on the first play. Podziemski and Klay each hit threes. Warriors were getting inside. They cut it to 9 almost in a blink. But then I think another key sequence in this one, the Spurs answered, Greg, with 8 points to push it right back to 76-59 mid-third quarter. And then basically they exchanged buckets from there till the end of the quarter. It was 20-20 from that point after the Spurs had made their little pushback run. And the Warriors were cutting it down, but the Spurs were answering back with some of their 17 big threes on the night. We talked about Kuminga in the fourth quarter. He got the first couple of buckets of the fourth on a cut from Draymond, and then a little short post drive for a dunk. Kuminga was up to 11 and 13 and 15 and getting to the line to make it 17. I mean, he ended up with 19 in the fourth quarter. And again, the Warriors were just kind of flirting with really making it a game. But the closest in looking at it that the Warriors got, I believe, was 11 in the fourth quarter. Looking at it right now, the closest the Warriors got in the fourth was 11 points. So they never got it down to single digits, and the Spurs walk out of Chase with a 126-113 victory.
Single digits?
Never got there. And so it winds up being, I think, a little bit of a demoralizing loss, not in that it really matters when this team has Stephen Curry back and playing. I mean, it's a completely different team, and whenever Steph comes back, whether it's Wednesday in Dallas or a week from tonight at Crypto.com Arena in Los Angeles, the Warriors are going to have to pick things up real quick with Steph, and they got to get back into that rotation that they had that led them to the 14 out of 18, and I think they got to get back. The other thing that's low-key, I think, broken the Warriors' momentum here of late is the reacclimation of Wiggins. Like, Wiggins was rolling and playing his best basketball of the season before he had to take his little hiatus on the road trip. Moses Moody stepped in, had 3 really good games, I thought, Greg. And the reacclimation over these last 3 games, whether it's been minutes restriction that Steve Kerr said wasn't there, that wound up being there, or the ease in, or whatever it has been for Wiggins. Wiggins has not been effective for the most part since his return here over these last 3 games, and I think that's been an unfortunate thing that's really, I think, shocked some of the Warriors' rhythm. And now you take Curry away, and you just find all kinds of trouble. They got to get Wiggins back and involved and in the starting lineup with Kuminga and Draymond, and they got to figure out what they're going to do with Klay Thompson and Podziemski, but Chris Paul and then obviously Steph when Steph comes back. Wiggins, the reacclimation of Wiggins has hurt because it's taken him a handful of games to get back to basically the level that he was playing at, which was quality enough, Greg, before he unfortunately had to take that little personal leave on the East Coast trip.
Yeah, and this is not about blaming Wiggins for the absence that he had to have, but it is fair to point out that reacclimating him has kind of messed things up, and it set him back when he's already had a really rough season that was finally going better, and he was proving to be more and more effective. And then he had another little setback, and you can't, like, again, it's always going to be about, I'll probably say this 25 times before this season ends, there's just not a lot that is able to go wrong for this team. And when you have Steph Curry out and now you got this extra little thing with Wiggins, just add that to the list that kind of piles up a little bit more and a little bit more. And all of a sudden you're out of sorts and you're losing game to a Spurs team that is completely justified because they came in and ate your lunch on your home floor.
Yeah, and look, I think, and this is going to be unpopular, and people are not going to like this comment, but I think for this season, last year it was different. Last year the Warriors were maybe they were a 14-12 team without Steph. This year's team is built completely differently, and we've talked about it a lot. The Warriors have been fortunate that they haven't had to play a lot of games without Steph and Curry. But this team this year, I think you almost have to look at it as, this is a 25, 26, 27 win team when they don't play Steph Curry. So you're not going to get a lot of wins against anybody. And even when you're playing a team like San Antonio, who now leaves Chase with a 14 and 50 record, it winds up being a scenario where, basically this was two bad teams going against each other tonight. And I think you have to look at it that way. Warriors could have won tonight if they had played well. They didn't. But if they don't play well, they have the ability to lose to absolutely anybody and everybody in the NBA. And that includes the Western Conference bottom-feeding San Antonio Spurs without Vassell and without Victor Wembanyama, who is expected to be back on Monday when these two teams have the rematch. All right, our question of the night.
That should help for the Warriors because then they'll be able to really dominate inside, right?
Yeah, and not great. Although, again, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Warriors went into San Antonio and won that game. I mean, the Spurs have lost plenty of games this season with Victor Wembanyama. But they're going to have to play a lot better than they did. They're going to have to be a lot more forceful. They have to. The thing that was the most disappointing for me tonight about the Warriors was the lack of hustle, the lack of energy, the lack of scrappiness. They were just kind of loafing around tonight. Like they could just show up. You know what? They played, I thought, tonight like they thought they could beat the Spurs 130 to 126 if they needed to. And let me tell you something.
Yeah, but why would they think that?
The Sacramento Kings can do that. The Golden State Warriors cannot do that.
But why would they even think that when you look at the track record of some of the bad games they've had this year? Like that to me makes zero sense.
I don't think they fully realize how bad a team they truly are when Steph doesn't play. I think a lot of the individual players, in particular the young players who I think, all were poor tonight overall. I think the young players looked at it like, hey, we're not playing a very good team, and we're going to come out and just play the way we've been playing. Going to get more opportunities because Steph's not out, and we're going to kind of cruise. They don't have Vassell. They don't have Wembanyama. This is, I do think there is that normal, as unacceptable as it is, and especially for this Warriors team, Greg, it's completely and wholly unacceptable given you got to look in the mirror. But I think there was that little bit of a letdown factor, unfortunately, and I think all teams do it. We've seen, I think it's a big part of the reason why the Warriors are not great at home. I don't think they've played with the same force, basically, when they've been at home this year. I think they've played much more aggressively on the road. I think they've played much more just confidently on the road. Like they know they have to be at a certain level energy-wise to be able to win on the road. And so, I think at home teams do have a tendency to coast, and we'll see if San Antonio ultimately does that when they're back at home on Monday, feeling like, hey, they just beat this Warriors team, and now Wemby and potentially Vassell are coming back. And so, then maybe they have a little bit of a letdown. The Warriors have a much more forceful style of play on Monday because they know they just got their ass kicked by the Spurs in their own building, and that's where you see, it wouldn't surprise me if the Warriors won 117-105 on Monday night for that very reason.
Yeah.
Let's do question of the night as well. And 808 KNBR is the phone number. Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line is open as well. We're going to have Sounds of Silver coming up here. We're going to have some not so much fun with numbers. Join me out here at Harmonic Brewing, Thrive City, as well. Appreciate everybody out here. Appreciate them for having us as the Warriors end up losing this one. Unfortunate tonight. The Warriors lose this one to San Antonio 126-113, so they're back to 33-30, and they're giving back a little of what they have built up over the course of the last month and a half, basically, where they went from 5 under to 5 over. But the inability to get to 6 and 7 over 500 here, losing these last two, is obviously going to be problematic, and they're going to have to make up for it at some point here down the stretch of the season. But these last two nights, Greg, Thursday and tonight, before we get to the question of the night, these last two nights are going to be the reason why I think the Warriors are going to look back. If they are 9th or 10th in the West, I think these last two nights are going to be the reasons why they ultimately end up 9th or 10th in the Western Conference play-in race, and quite frankly, maybe playing an elimination game right off the jump to try and save their season come, say, April the 17th. Our question of the night, and we were kicking this around during the game, should the Warriors lose? And here it is. And you can participate, 808 KNBR, the number. You can participate, obviously, via social media. We'll put this up on Threads. We'll put this up on Twitter. And it's, how many games would this Warriors team win without Stephen Curry? And, Greg, I want to make sure we're on the same page as far as how we do it. I have it as 37-45. A, 37-45. B, 31-36. C, 35-30. And then D is, C, 25-30. D, under 25. Is that how you have it roughly worded as you type it up and put it in print?
Indeed.
Okay, so yeah. And we'll have a little fun with that. I'm curious. I was having that conversation with a few people on Press Row inside Chase tonight because I do think, and I don't mean to be harsh, and this is an unfortunate loss for the Warriors, and I don't mean to be harsh, but I do think there is a little bit of a skewed viewpoint as to how good the rest of the players around Steph Curry truly are. And I'm not saying this to be a Steph sycophant and to say Steph doesn't have enough help or anything like that, but this team is built around having Stephen Curry and having Stephen Curry play at a high level for them to be able to win. So I just am curious and want to gauge the pulse of Dub Nation as far as just what they think, how good they think the rest of this squad is if they were a standalone squad, and then kind of relate that back to how you can lose a game like tonight, because I think that's where it starts. It's the fact that this team isn't nearly, in my opinion, what the masses believe they are in terms of talent when you take Stephen Curry out of the equation, although it's proven tonight, so we may get a little recency bias in this thing tonight. All right, 808 KNBR, if you want to weigh in on this one, where do the Warriors go from here? I've got some thoughts on the rematch Monday and how the Warriors make a pretty simple adjustment. As Steve Kerr said before the game, however long they have to play without Steph Curry, they need to figure out the best possible options for each individual game. And so I've got some thoughts on how they move forward with that. Sounds of Silver, fun with numbers. It's all coming up. It's Dubs OT with JD from Harmonic at Thrive City, KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Oh, no! We suck again!
is the flagship of Giants baseball.
Double play!
KNBR and KNBR FM San Francisco, the sports leader. Hoops Heads, Dubs OT with John Dickinson keeps ballin'. Streaming live at twitch.tv/the sports leader.
13 of 36.
Oh, the guy that was kind of making shots, Klay Thompson, is in foul trouble.
Champagny catch and shoot three. And San Antonio continues to add to the lead. Steve Kerr continues to take timeouts. And it is nervous time at Chase Center. The Dubs without Steph are not in this game right now.
Yeah, tough one for the Warriors. San Antonio hit 17 threes at a 51.5% clip. That's 17 to 33. Warriors trailed by as many as 21. They only led by 2 in this one, and it ends up being a rough night for the Warriors all around. They basically got blown out by San Antonio, never within single digits at any point in the fourth quarter. 126 to 113 is the final as we welcome you back here to Dubs OT with JD KNBR, the sports leader. Harmonic Brewing, Thrive City. Warriors hitting the road again for 3 in San Antonio on Monday, Wednesday at Dallas, and then at the Lakers a week from tonight. Those Dallas and Laker games are huge, but they're all huge, and the Warriors' inability to win tonight is really something that's going to have the potential to I think, kneecap their sights on becoming anything other than a team that's in the 9-8 matchup in the Western Conference as far as the play-in tournament goes. I do think, Greg, that the Warriors can get to 8 still, although they lost ground on Dallas tonight. Just kind of running through some of the scores in the other games tonight. Dallas ended up in a position where they won at Detroit, 142 to 124. Huge game for Luka Doncic, 39, 10, and 10. Another triple-double for Luka. So San Antonio, or Dallas rather, gains ground because of the San Antonio win at Chase. And you look up at the standings, and so the Warriors now find themselves 2.5 back of Dallas. So they're going to have to win 2 of the 3 head-to-head. I think 8th is still attainable. The Warriors are 3.5 back now of 7/6, which is Phoenix and Sacramento. The Warriors are not going to have the tiebreaker over Phoenix or Sacramento. I think it's becoming increasingly, I'm not calling the race, Greg. I'm not calling Arizona or Georgia. I'm not doing that tonight.
Stop the count.
We're not going to stop the count. We're not going to stop the count with 19 games to go. But I think it's increasingly more. I feel like the Warriors' ceiling is 8th. And we're almost to the point where I think we can stop the count because the bottom line is the Warriors are not going to have the tiebreaker over the Kings or the Suns. And so while they may go back and forth, as far as who's in and who's out of the play-in tournament, Dallas 2.5 with 3 head-to-head. The Lakers 1 with 2 head-to-head. That's attainable, I think, both ways. But I think we're on the fringe of being 7th or 6th, kind of going by the wayside here with 19 to go.
It's kind of crazy how, if you think after the Milwaukee game, just like 3 nights ago or so, it was all of a sudden, let's look at the West. Dallas, Sacramento, kind of close. And then fast forward, and now it's like, hey, buddy, you got to worry about your own problems. Like, you got to not focus on the West so much. By the way, bonus question of the night, and I say bonus because it's sarcastic. Which team do you think is better, the Warriors without Stephen Curry or the Lakers without LeBron James?
Well, the Lakers still have Anthony Davis, which, when Anthony Davis is playing at a high level, is better than anybody the Warriors have. I mean, Anthony Davis is better than any Warriors player not named Steph Curry. Like, even with his own ups and downs. Any pushback there?
No, not at all. Didn't expect D'Angelo Russell to have 44 last night, though.
Yeah, and honestly, you could make the case D'Lo is better than any other Warrior that's not named Steph Curry. I mean, I know he's been very up and down. We can maybe have a conversation about that if you want to come down my road a little bit. But I mean, it's the Lakers without a doubt.
Yeah, it was a sarcastic question for those who didn't pick up on it in the chat.
Yeah, no, and I gave you a real answer, but yeah, I don't even think it's close. 808 KNBR, the number, that's where from the 925, we do get a text message here from the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line, and it's a lengthy one, so bear with me as I read it here, Greg. I know I'm looking ahead, but what do we do, the Warriors, when Steph, Clay, and Dre are gone? We aren't bad enough to get a decent draft pick. Well, the Warriors already had a couple of more than decent draft picks. They had 2 and 7 in back-to-back years. And when you look at Kuminga, Podziemski, TJD, Looney, I don't know, Looney shouldn't be in that conversation. Moody, I think he meant Moody. Kuminga, Podziemski, TJD, Moody, in my opinion, don't look like they can bring the Warriors a championship. Well, yeah, they can't. Like anybody, I'm just going to stop right there. Before I read the rest of the text, Kuminga, Podziemski, Trace Jackson Davis, and Moody could all be really nice players, but that's never going to they're never going to be the core 4 of a title contending team. I think we already know that. Maybe Kuminga becomes an all-star or better at some point, but he's the only one of that group that's going to become better than an all-star. I think he's the only one that has a chance to be anything, between all-star, let's say between all-star and superstar. Kuminga's the only one. So, yeah, but again, it goes back to the point, Greg, and I want to hit you with this because I know you're a big Warrior fan. I don't know what the percentage is, but I do think there's a decent percentage of Warrior fans that really have inappropriately looked at the young players as if they were part of this next wave, part of this next core. I've never looked at Kuminga, Moody, TJD, and Podziemski 3, 4, 5 years from now they're going to be 4/5 of a starting lineup that's basically winning 45, 50 games a year, or just basically held up by each other. I've never looked at it that way. Maybe you have. I think a lot of Warrior fans, probably too many Warrior fans, have unfortunately looked at it that way. Some of that could be drinking a little bit of what's been presented by the organization at times, which I do think is a fair criticism. But, I don't know about you. I've just never looked at it I've never looked at Kuminga, Podziemski, TJD, and Moody as if they're the next Steph, Clay, Dre. We're talking about future freaking Hall of Famers here. We're talking about all-time greats. All 4 of those guys could be really good players that were between, let's say, all-star and superstar level players. And, again, I think Kuminga's the only one that's got a shot at that. But all 4 could be that, Greg, and still not be Hall of Famers, which is what those other 3 guys are.
Yeah, I don't know if I fully bought into the next wave 2-track timeline thing. I will say it seemed like after 2022 and that championship run, Jordan Poole was going to be the bridge to keep this team from just bottoming out when this thing was over. That was a case of life coming at you fast. I actually really like Amar Singh's comment in the chat that I'll put up right now, saying
Awesome.
that 2022 title makes everything worth it. None of this really matters. Just trying to enjoy Steph's twilight. I wouldn't say
I would agree with that.
I don't know if I'm in the camp of it doesn't matter in the sense of I'm covering all these games with you. Of course it matters to me,
sure,
covering this team. But I get what Amar Singh is saying in the sense of, I think at the time in 2022 when I was just a fan and wasn't working here, I think I was able to grasp that perspective of, oh, you don't know if you're ever going to get back. This could always be it. I think that was symbolic of coming back when everybody said it was over and you bottomed out with all these injuries and Kevin Durant leaving, and just to really solidify how special everybody was, but especially Stephen Curry to the whole thing. I think now, even if this is kind of the end and this is what they are, and you have one incredible leader and player of the game of basketball, but beyond that, it looks pretty rough like we saw tonight. I think you can gain a greater sense of what that really took in 2022. But I don't want to live in the past more so than the present. So to go back to your original question about how I was viewing the young players, yeah, I don't know if I ever bought into oh, well, it's just going to be Kuminga and Poole and Wiseman, and this is going to be a seamless transition. Like, nah, dude, winning in the NBA is so hard, bottom line, no matter what. But I do think there have been instances where it'll come at you a little bit quicker than you'd expect. And when you're on the top, everything seems to go by quicker, and just kind of little things will pass you by a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with basically what you said about the back end of it. It's like I think the 2022 championship does make everything worth it moving forward, but I don't think the Warriors want to be in a position where it's, nothing matters. Like, I don't think I don't think that's how they view it. They want to compete and contend and maybe be good enough to add and make another run toward potentially winning that title. I also liked a couple other of Amar's comments tonight. Young guys just didn't deliver. That's what you get with young players. Inconsistency. Wiggins is who he is. Bill M. be taking exception. Wiggins was okay. I've heard it all now. I said I thought his energy was okay. I didn't think he played great, but I thought his energy was okay. Amar also saying, I don't think even the staunchest Kerr hater would blame him for this game. You'd have to be utterly brain dead. Douglas Mikes checking in early on the chat. Kerr starting CP3, Moody, Kuminga, Draymond, and TJD is some next-level trolling. A couple of people said that. What is the troll there? I need you to help me decipher, as somebody that's all over Warriors social media, what is the troll job there from Kerr as far as that starting five specifically? What am I missing there? Who is he trolling?
Yeah, I don't know. I would just say putting Kuminga at the 3, because I know you texted me YOLO Kerr when the starting lineup was announced, but yeah.
Or maybe it's starting TJD and not Clay, or I maybe it was something like that. And Moody obviously wasn't the starter. It was Podziemski. So yeah, Erwin Kwong, Warriors playing like their record, which is the 8th or the 9 seed. Absolutely. Uncle Looney, CP3. I think he's saying CP3. That bad on defense, lack of energy. Uncle Looney, all the young guys were awful tonight. I wholeheartedly agree. Unfortunately, I mean, the young guys didn't have it. Rebel DeSounds, enough of the Podziemski skyhook. I know we had a few other people that said he never makes that shot, which he typically does not make that shot. Podziemski from regulator doesn't do anything on defense but take charges. At times he can be a rough defensive. He's a willing defender, but don't confuse willing defender, Greg, I always say, for quality defender. Uncle Looney also checking in, and I thought this was a really good. I thought Kuminga being given the number 1 option was going to ball. I thought he had the potential to really ball in this matchup against San Antonio. I thought the first quarter was going to look more like the second quarter did, and it just didn't, unfortunately, for the Warriors, or the fourth quarter. I thought the first quarter would look like the fourth quarter. If I said second quarter, a little bit of a misspeak here out at Harmonic. And, Amar, again, another great one from Amar. Warrior fans hype the young guys way too much. The only one with star potential is JK, and that'll be in 3 to 5 years. Yeah, I may even say 2 to 4, but I think, Amar, you're spot on. And Kuminga still, doesn't, as regulator pointed out, have a jump shot. So teams pack the paint, and the Spurs were able to basically keep him out of the paint. And again, Kuminga, this is the rat on the table with Kuminga. He is content settling for jumpers because he thinks he's a jump shooter, and he's really not at this point. Maybe he is down the line. Martin Francis on Kuminga. Kuminga limited offensive. I think his offensive. Martin says Kuminga has limited offensive instincts. No moves besides cranking threes or putting his head down and driving. I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I think his offensive instincts are getting better. I think he's looking to pass more, which is a good thing. I think he does, again, because of the player that I think he thinks he is much more comfortable with those pull-up jumpers from the mid-range than I think anybody. should be comfortable with him taking. And I think that's part of the problem. But you saw when he put his head down in the fourth quarter, I mean, he was freaking unstoppable. So it's just a matter of how do you get to that. But a lot of that was the Spurs were in control, and they were, I think, wanting the Warriors to isolate more of Kuminga. They were almost going to let him have his as long as nobody got hot from three-point range. Erwin Kwong checking in. I put a lot of the blame on Atkinson's defensive philosophy. Mike Brown's defense didn't allow such high three-point percentage. Well, ask the Kings how that's going, because the Kings are about as bad as the Warriors are in terms of giving up the three ball. Actually worse. I think the Kings are 30 out of 30 in the NBA in terms of giving up the three ball. But, yes, when Brown was with the Warriors and the Warriors had defensive personnel, it was really good. Bill M says, trust me, Kuminga will get there. Fair enough. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but he's not there yet. And I think at times, again, he kind of thinks he's farther along. Otis Bird III. Greg is pissed. Greg, how you doing tonight, brother? You good?
Hey, fair enough. I would say I'm for sure animated. I mean, when you work these long Saturdays with just dubs in the morning and a dubs OT at night, you got to have some energy. You got to bring it. So, that game did rile me up a little bit for sure. But I think any feelings that are being portrayed, I think it's probably just having to echo some of the same points I have multiple times, whether that be on social media or off the air or on the air, and probably just kind of releasing all of that. I mean, that was a pretty disgusting game. Don't get me wrong, but the Warriors are the 10th seed for a reason. I can't say I didn't fully see this one coming.
No, I think that's fair. And look, I mean, as much as I was kind of in no excuses mode, I don't, and the people have found this out tonight during the show, I don't really have a high opinion of this Warriors team without Steph Curry. I think they would be a bottom 5 or 6 team in the NBA if they had to play an 82-game season. So I'm not surprised that if the Warriors were going to play a bad game, they would get beat in a game like tonight. I did not expect them to roll the ball out and win, but I expected them to play their ass off. I expected them to play harder. I expected them to play more forcefully and passionately, and they just didn't have it. This was an opportunity for the young players, Greg, to grab it by the horns and earn a win against a team of like talent and players in the league, and they just didn't freaking do it tonight, which is ugly. No doubt. Once again, and Douglas Mike's reiterating as a group of Spurs fans take a group picture here inside Harmonic Brewing. Looks like about 6 Spurs fans all fired up, maybe made the trip out from Texas to be here and see their team play on the road. Well, they end up having a good night, and they're having a few brews here at Harmonic as they take a group picture in front of me. I didn't know that many Spurs fans actually still existed. Even when the Spurs were dominant, there weren't a lot of Spurs fans that I felt existed back in the day. But cheers to them as they get the win at Chase, and their second win at Chase in the last 3 years. Yeah, it's a couple of Duncan. We got a couple of Duncan jerseys and a Spurs T-shirt, and yeah, it's no go Spurs go, but a couple of Duncan jerseys here at Harmonic tonight. Douglas Mikes clarified. He said the starters should have been Podziemski, Moody, Wiggins, Kuminga, and Draymond. Yeah, that was never happening. That was again, you can want it. It's fair. It's your opinion. Erwin Kwong, Moody needed to step up shooting-wise. He just plain didn't. Yeah, Moody was awful tonight. And like you said, and honestly, Moody showed you tonight why Moody finds his way being the odd man out from time. Because when he doesn't make shots, there are nights where he doesn't do a lot else, and he is a rough watch. So I think
in the late third quarter, he was at least making up for it with hustle and rebounds and getting to the line. That counted for something. In the first half, he was asleep. He was asleep for up until that point.
It was really strange. I thought the younger players tonight, Greg, played like they looked like they could coast Like the young guys can never coast. You can never coast if you're a young guy, especially with your superstar out. That, I think, is maybe the most galling. From Kuminga to Pajemski to TJD to Moody, I'm putting them all in that category. They all played tonight like they felt like they could coast. And I think that was a big part of why the Warriors found themselves in so much trouble in this one. So, yeah, tough night. Jimbo, Kuminga didn't have a great game, but who did? Absolutely. I mean, I think nobody did.
You could say Clay.
Nobody did other than Clay.
Yeah.
Nobody did other than Clay. It was Uncle Looney chiming in, and I wanted to point. I kind of referenced this earlier. To me, it's Kuminga's mindset. Without Curry, he needs to be extra aggressive. Again, yes, agree. But Kuminga's definition of extra aggressive, I think, is, hey, I'm playing the three. I need to score. I'm gonna shoot jumpers. This is my night to be Kawhi. This is my night to be Paul George. This is my night to be the guy that I think I am. Really, what be more aggressive is do what you did in the fourth quarter the whole game. That's really what it means. And so, yeah, that's where I think things are, going to be. As far as, moving forward. But again, I think Kuminga will come out and play a lot better from the jump on Monday. It's a learning experience. It's an unfortunate one that it cost the Warriors a loss on top of the loss. But it is what it is. No cap 757. Should have kept Poole. Look, the Warriors don't need Jordan Poole. I expected Kuminga to come out looking like Ant-Man. You don't want that because he's not Ant-Man. Talking about Anthony Edwards. Jonathan Kuminga is not Anthony Edwards in 2024. Now, maybe he is in 2026, but Jonathan Kuminga is not freaking Anthony Edwards, and people need to get that out of their freaking head. That's not who he is. He's a power forward who can score in the short post or when he drives with an open lane or he gets out in transition. Like, he's nothing like freaking Anthony Edwards. See, I think he wanted to be like Anthony Edwards tonight. That's actually another great comp I should throw into the equation. Kuminga, what does Anthony Edwards do, Greg? Anthony Edwards puts it on the deck 25 feet away from the basket and looks to hit pull-up freaking jumpers. That ain't Kuminga. Kuminga needs to get to the rack or get to the free throw line, not be looking to cast off, pull up jumpers like he's Kevin freaking Durant from 17 feet out. That's losing basketball from Jonathan Kuminga in year 3 in 2024. No cap. Should have kept Jordan Poole, JD. LOL, I told you. The Warriors do not need Jordan Poole at any point other than when Steph Curry's out. And look, I said it back in the summer when they traded him. The only downside to trading Jordan Poole was what happens when Stephen Curry's hurt. Because CP3 ain't getting you 30. And the Warriors won a bunch of home games last year because Jordan Poole got him 25 when Curry was out. And they were able to stabilize and win. And it's a big part of the reason why they were 33-8 at home. But other than that specific instance where the Warriors made themselves more vulnerable, they've been a better team for not having Jordan Poole. Mark says Warriors offense is built for Steph, so when he doesn't play, it just doesn't work. I think there's a big level of truth to that. More from Douglas Mikes. It's okay. Warriors have a lot of assets and salaries to work with this summer. They can make moves. That's the only positivity I have for this team. They do. Absolutely. They do have the ability to do that. Amar going in on those, going in on Kerr. FL Dubs fan, so which is it, JD? Did Kerr not tell him to get out to shooters on the arc, or are they not listening to him? I just think they didn't play with enough intensity. I didn't think they played. I think the game plan was not to sag off. I just think they were slow in rotation tonight. I don't think tonight was the defense. They overhelp. I think they overhelp because they have too many players that freelance. I don't think the game plan is to overhelp. Stick to your freaking shooters. And I think Kerr is telling them that, and I don't think they're always listening to it. I really don't. 808 KNBR, the number. Let's go ahead and pause here. We'll come back. We'll reset, Greg. our question of the night. We'll have Sounds of Silver, and we'll keep this thing going until about 9:55. If you want to sneak in some calls, we can do it. More from the YouTube chat, which has been tremendous. It's Dubs OT with JD from Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City. It's KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Did you hear something?
Yeah, like a swoosh.
Yeah.
Dubs OT presents the sounds of silver. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
Greg Popovich has coached a long time, and right now he's got the Warriors befuddled. You're not getting enough movement, enough screening, as Sarahan's able to score on the other side, take advantage of the turnover. Yeah, Steve Kerr's going to take a timeout right now. San Antonio, right now they're just outplaying the Dubs. Biggest lead of the night has moved up to 12.
Yeah, and that would not be the biggest lead of the night. It was the biggest lead of the night early. Warriors end up down as many as 21. And they lose tonight at Chase. 126-113 is the final. Spurs win the first and second quarters. Second quarter really is what did the Warriors in, and the Spurs' ability to withstand some Warriors runs in the third quarter as well. But 30-16. The Warriors scored 43 in the first half. They had 70 in the second half, but they give up 64, and that's not nearly enough to be able to make up the ground. So the Warriors are back to 3 over 500, and they're back on the road, which maybe at this point is a good thing because they're 17-17 at home with 7 home games to go now. They've got the Knicks, Grizzlies, and Pacers in on the next homestand Monday, Wednesday, Friday, coming up the week of the 18th to the 22nd. And then they go on a long road trip, and the other home games are the Mavs makeup game, and then they play the Pelicans and have 2 on consecutive Sundays, the final 2 Sundays of the NBA season, against the Jazz on April 7th and April 14th. And so the Warriors are not going to get that one loss, Greg, that I had talked about that they needed to get. I think at one point I said they need to go 11-1, and then I said they need to go 9-1, and then after last night I said they got to go whatever is left in 1, and now there's 7 to go, and I'll just say it. I think they need to go 7-0 in the final 7. But the way that they've played, don't count on it at this point. Also, just quickly revisiting before I get to you, Greg, and you can weigh in on all of that. And I want your take on what's the issue has been at home. I kind of gave my thoughts on it earlier. But the Dubs OT question of the night, how many games would this Warriors team win fully healthy but without Steph Curry? And 37-45 is one option. 30-36 is another. 25-30 another. Under 25. And on Twitter, under 25 is leading on this Saturday night, 40%. I am inclined to roll with that. I think this team would struggle to win 25. And so that means it's basically a like opponents kind of a game tonight with San Antonio, especially without Wemby and Vassell. And so if you don't play well, you're going to get beat. Greg, where did you vote on this? And give me your thoughts before we get into Sounds of Silver and hear from Steve Kerr and Klay Thompson. What you think about the Warriors' home struggles now, 17-17.
For the poll, I clicked 25-30, but it was one of those I was multitasking and I clicked something so I could see the number spread. I would probably say around 25. Yeah, right around there. On Threads, by the way, it's 41% say under 25, and then
wow.
And then 30-36 is the next most popular option at 24. Then both 25-30 and 37-45 have 18% each.
Interesting. Yeah, 37-45 is 9% of the vote on Twitter. And I am surprised. I actually thought 30-36 would do better than it has. I thought that low-key had the potential to win the vote. But, again, the recency bias, I think, negating a lot of that here tonight on Dubs OT. So let's get to Sounds of Silver. I know you said, Greg, in the break we were going to talk to Steve, or we were going to hear from Steve Kerr. What do we got lined up as far as Sounds of Silver tonight here on the Sports Leader?
Well, this is just a blessing in disguise all around because I have nothing against playing full press conferences, which we will do for Klay Thompson and Steve Kerr, but it also further illustrates the greatness of our sound cutters who Raf Corral is a frequent one. We got Kyle Har here sometimes. We got Kyle Chung, newest member. Nice. So just a tip of the hat to all the sound cutters. Like, I'm getting credit for the name of the segment, but really it's a team effort all around. So we will hear one shortcut from Jonathan Kuminga, and then we're going to hear long form at the podium from Steve Kerr and Klay Thompson. Kuminga basically said that they're going to feel Steph's absence. So let me get that queued up for you right here.
We got everybody coming off the bench, starting, anybody missing, everybody there. I feel like we have a great team to compete against anybody. And of course, we're going to feel Steph's absence, but there can't be a reason because Steph not playing. That's why we're losing. Obviously, he comes in, he changed the game, but just us missing him don't mean we got to go out there and lose.
Well, I agree with that last part. I mean, and this team's going to have to find a way to get a couple of wins potentially without Stephen Curry. But I think the first part is pretty profound and on point from J.K. His loss will be felt, and I think his loss to this point has been felt. No more than it has tonight. As you look at the other three games, and I was trying to go back, you look at the other three games that Steph had missed before tonight, and they were games that the Warriors very easily could have lost had Steph Curry played. In Milwaukee when they gave him the night off in January, and then the two home games against Minnesota and Oklahoma City that the Warriors got beat. And the Minnesota game was the night of the Draymond, Rudy Gobert, Klay Thompson, Jaden McDaniels melee back in November. But tonight's the first one where I think it really was felt, because this is a game the Warriors, I'm going to say it, 100% win if Stephen Curry plays.
If it's not 100, it's got to be like 98 plus to me.
Yeah, given the way that they had been playing of late, they would have won tonight. Like, they would have won tonight because they would have had a little more, I think, desperation off of the loss to Chicago. But again, if he doesn't go out in the Chicago game, maybe they win that game too. And we're having a completely different conversation. But alas, you are what your record says you are, and the Warriors took 2 L's here, and they're 33-30.
They sure are. You are what your record says you are. I think applies more times than not in sports, and certainly applies to this Golden State Warriors bunch. What do you say we hear from Steve Kerr?
Let's hear from Steve Kerr. Full press conference?
Full press, at least as aired on NBC Sports Bay Area, so 4.5 minutes. And I want you to all sit back and relax. Maybe relax is the wrong word for tonight, but sit back and we'll be here, right here too with you.
Any reason why you changed your starting lineup when it was only like less than 5 minutes in and the game was still tied?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Why you changed? I guess you went to the bench when you had less than 5 minutes into the game when it was still tied.
Why did I do that?
Yeah.
Those were the rotations that we wanted to get to.
I think they hit 17 threes, which, they're not a team that hits many threes. Do you feel like those were defensive breakdowns, or were you trying to get them?
I like the way the game started. Sohan hit 2 threes, which you don't expect that, but I thought our defense was really good. That's why we started the way we did with that lineup. I wanted to have Draymond and Trace out there together, and I think when we subbed, it was 9-9. Our defense was fine. But as the game went on, we had multiple breakdowns. They got to the rim at will, and we gave up, 28 free throws and 17 threes. You got to stop something. And I thought they got anything they wanted all night. So it was a tough night for us defensively.
Steve, what was the hardest part of this game for you to endure?
All of it. It was tough. We just never had any traction in the game. I didn't feel like we had confidence or energy. I thought their pace and their movement bothered us, and then we had some breakdowns and just felt like we were never really in the game.
What do you feel like didn't work offensively in the first half? Where did those struggles come from?
Well, it's obviously it's we're playing some lineups that haven't played together a whole lot. With Steph out, it changes things dramatically for us in terms of, what he provides, not only with the shooting, but the spacing and the gravity that pulls defenses aside. So they did a good job of just staying in front of us, and I didn't think we moved the ball particularly well.
Are you seeing some kind of growing pains with the youth right now, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, we're playing a lot of young guys. We started 2 of them, and this is all part of it. You have to go through multiple seasons to really understand the different games that are going to happen, the different styles, different emotional swings. There's all of that has to be experienced by young guys in order to develop and grow and understand how to win. So it's all part of it.
Steve, Jonathan was really able to get you going to start the fourth quarter and attack the rim, but it seemed like even when you got a little momentum, they seemed to answer with a big shot or did something just tough to make a stop after some of those good stretches?
Yeah, we just didn't ever establish anything defensively. They shot 51% from the floor and from 3, got to the foul line. So we just never quite got traction in the game defensively, which allowed them, every time we tried to make a run, they'd hit a 3, they'd hit another 3, and it's back to 12, 15, so which couldn't get there.
You mentioned the spacing and gravity without Steph. I assume that's why you played Clay to start the second half. And how much do you need to sort of create that space for Jonathan and others to operate? Yeah, I mean, that's we've been starting the way we have over the last 6 weeks because of the impact that Steph has for J.K., getting downhill, and Wiggs, same thing. So without him, there aren't as many driving lanes for sure. So it's different, and that's why I didn't just plug Chris in for Steph and keep the same starting lineup. I felt like we needed to do something different. So my main motivation for the starting lineup was to get off to a great defensive start. I wanted to set a tone with a really good defensive lineup. See how we could score. It was a little bit of a struggle to score first 5 minutes. I think, as I said, it was 9-9. But I liked the defense. I wanted that tone set, but we couldn't maintain it.
All right, so there you go there. Steve Kerr at the end explaining the starting lineup decision, which makes more sense after hearing him say it. Basically wasn't concerned about offense, knew they would probably struggle offensively with that group and Kuminga at the 3. But you have Kuminga out there in theory with Draymond and TJD, and you should be pretty good defensively, Podziemski taking charges and the like. But that part of it worked, but they were so woeful offensively that it became problematic. And again, Steph's impact on Kuminga, I think, was seen. But, again, Kuminga was able in the fourth quarter to get to the rack with ease. He didn't really do that in the first quarter. And so I think there is a little bit of something there. And I thought, Greg, the comments, and we can kind of run through, I was taking notes here. That's one thing we can do when we play lengthier portions of the press conference, just kind of notes on what he had to say that become talking points. And I thought the point about just, you got to stop something was right on the money. I mean, the Warriors were giving up threes. They were giving up fouls. Like, it was just a really, 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 really bad defensive game from the jump. And that's something that I think probably surprises me the most about the way this one played out.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm sitting here trying to figure out how much of it falls on Steve Kerr versus how much of it falls on the players, because I don't think either side.
I think none of it tonight falls on Kerr. I think none of it tonight's on Kerr. I'll let you finish. I apologize for jumping in. I'm always jumping you, but I'm just going to keep it short and sweet. I don't think any of it's on Kerr tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because when your team comes out flat at home and you're against an undermanned opponent, and we've seen it repetitively, I think in any sport, coaching will always come into question. But I would agree with you that it does fall on the players much more than it would Steve Kerr because of who you had out there looking like they even gave a damn. And what's kind of crazy is what we've touched on a little bit earlier in the show, which is if you're Moses Moody or Jonathan Kuminga or Trace Jackson-Davis or Brandon Podziemski, who needs to be motivating you to go out and bring it on a home game? Maybe if you're a Draymond Green or a Klay Thompson or a Chris Paul, not that you should either, but I'm just saying you can justify it a little bit better with the history of winning that they've had. If you're 22 years old and you maybe are frustrating with not getting, you're frustrated with the lack of opportunities you're getting, or you're, it's a big chance to go out there and play against a team of other young guys. What motivation do you need?
No, you shouldn't need any. I mean, this is a time to go out there and thrive for all of them, and that's probably the second most confounding thing for me tonight is the fact that the young players look like they wanted to coast in this one. The other, just as far as a couple of notes here from Steve Kerr, and then we'll hear from Klay Thompson, do some fun with numbers, and maybe sneak in a little YouTube chat. But yeah, the offense in the first half was not there, but then the defense as the game went on. Growing pains with the youth was something else. I mean, I agree with this. Like, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Like, this is what it's all, is all a part of the growth and the development. And so, we can say Kuminga didn't have a good game, even though he had a pretty good fourth quarter. We can say Moody was, for the most part, awful and sleepwalking until late. And, TJD, fine. Podziemski, I don't think, was good. Like, we can talk about all of those things. And yeah, the reality is that's why I think this team's ceiling is capped a little bit at this point, because the young players, it's not their fault. Like, I'm not putting the game on any of these young players, but when you're that reliant on young players, even somebody like JK, he didn't play like he did in these other games that the Warriors have won over the last month and a half. And because of that, they didn't have any shot to win, basically, in the second half. Again, not putting it on him, like as a blame game kind of a thing, but because they're so dependent on him, if he doesn't do it, they're cooked. And so I think the Warriors, unfortunately, are in this position where they got to wear it. Like, when you build your team the way that the Warriors built their team, and then you take Steph away, which the Warriors have been, I think, injury luck, low-key lucky, because this is only the fourth game that he's missed, but they didn't. And we talked about this on a lot of our initial shows here when I moved over to KNBR. The Warriors didn't make the most early in the season of the fact that Steph had only missed 2-3 games, basically through the entire first half. And now it may bite him here in a week where they had their first real opportunity in a long time to make a legitimate push. Yeah. I don't know. I wish I had more to say. I feel drained by all of it tonight a little bit, but let's hear from Klay Thompson then. Let's just hear from Klay Thompson post game, and you know what? It's okay, Greg. If you don't have anything, that's okay. Like, we'll just keep it moving. We're approaching the 10 o'clock hour. Things are winding down here at Harmonic. I do have one more text message I want to get to on the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line. But let's hear from Captain Klay.
Well, I do have one thing, and that's our guy Bob Myers.
Okay. And it's just exhausting.
Tonight, again, these last two games have felt like early season Warriors, and not in a good way.
No, not at all. But let's hear from the one guy that I think is tough to fault tonight. That was Captain Klay, coming off the bench, hitting 5 threes, 27 points tonight, 25, 27. Team high, whatever it was. This is about 2.5 minutes of Klay Thompson.
You guys were like 33-8 at home last season. I think you're 17-17 this year. What do you think? Kind of, is there anything tangible you could say that's been the difference?
To be honest, no. Just how the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Klay, the way Jonathan kind of gave you guys some spark coming out of the gate in the fourth, attacking the rim like that, is it disappointing to be able to not get some key stops there at times when you could have grabbed some momentum a little bit and maybe run with that.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I mean, give credit to the Spurs. They shot the heck out the ball, 51.5% from three. And unfortunate night at the office for everybody, but John was great tonight at the rim, and hopefully he takes that same approach when we see them on Monday. And just a bad loss, though. I mean, just not good, but we'll flush it and bounce back Monday.
Clay, how does it change sort of the geometry on the court without Steph and the spacing, and how much do you take it on yourself to kind of create that space and make, and sort of replace some of the threes that he makes usually?
Well, Steph makes our life easier. Everybody out there's life's easier because he demands so much attention. And for myself, when I'm out there, I don't try to put more pressure on myself, just rather be myself and shoot open shots and create shots as well as make the basketball play. I mean, tonight was unfortunate. I got myself in foul trouble and had 3 turnovers. That's inexcusable, and I'll be better Monday. Oh, heck yeah, that's it. Oh.
Sort of off topic, sorry. Our columnist did a piece on Roger Federer. Did you have any interaction with him today while he was here? And I know there's a ping pong history there, right?
Roger's a great person. I met him in Shanghai in 2018, and he's just super down to earth, especially with all the success he's had. He doesn't have to be, and he's just a really cool guy, and I watched him my whole life growing up. It was awesome to have him in the building. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a win for him, but it was just cool to be in the presence of greatness, and he's just such a humble, likable person, and it was awesome to see him here in San Francisco.
It was cool to see Roger Federer in the house tonight, and I know there's been kind of a long standing relationship between the Warriors organization and Federer. It's not the first time he's been at a game. It's not the first time he's been in the practice facility, even going back 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. But yeah, that just last part first. That was pretty cool tonight in a little bit of a palate cleansing type of a way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think anytime you get stars in the building,
big Federer guy, Greg. You big tennis guy? No, it's okay.
I mean, I'm not a crazy big tennis. I'm no Michael Connell when it comes to tennis, but it's like that's also one of the sports where tennis is a freaking hard sport. If you're great at tennis,
oh yeah,
I will respect you. So yeah, I mean, love Federer in that sense, but no, I don't key into all the tournaments in the way that I do the second quarter of a Warriors game going down to their 11th man in the rotation, if you know what I'm saying.
Let me tell you something. You win 20 Grand Slams, you're doing something right. You win 20 Grand Slams, that's got to be like winning, I don't know, that's got to be like winning 6-8 championships. There's got to be an equivalent. Somebody would say, well, he won 20 championships. He won 20 Grand Slams. But no, he's an all-time great, no doubt. Wanted to get a quick message in before we do Fun with Numbers. This from the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line. This whole season, this from Larry in the city. This whole season, it's felt like something is off with this team. Draymond suspension, Chris Paul gets hurt, Draymond returns, Wiggins leaves, up and down, and then Curry now hurt. Just as it looks like they're figuring it out. Outside of one recent stretch, this team has not gelled. I think they were starting to gel from Jan 24 on, but I think two things have wrecked it over the last couple of weeks, and it's the Wiggins reacclimation and obviously the Steph Curry injury. Hell, maybe the last couple of days. I mean, things were at a season high, it felt like, on Wednesday after the big win over the Bucks. And the signature win of the season, remember we were talking about that, 3 nights ago? Is this the signature win of the season? I think the last 2 games will tell you no. It was not. But my point to that is more, I do think they were starting to gel. And look, a month and a half is a decent amount of time to gel. but you take anything away and it's over immediately. Especially, as Larry in the City adds, especially if Steph is hurt. Tonight, perfect opportunity for Wiggins to take control, but this is not 2022, and no, it's not. And then I kind of, would respond to that even about Kuminga. Kuminga, his view, as we've talked about tonight, of being more aggressive was shooting more jumpers. And it was basically fourth quarter Kuminga needed to be had in the first quarter. And, Kuminga, great athlete. But the basketball IQ, he's still trying to figure out, I think, at this point. But he is trying to be more of a willing passer. But I thought the jumpers early were just death. Because that told me that in his mind, he was thinking, I get to be Kawhi tonight, and that means 15-foot jumpers. And you know what? If you're going to do that, Greg Popovich is going to be over there smiling because his team's got a chance to get a big win. All right, let's do some fun with numbers before we call it a night here on the Sports Leader.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
All right, Warriors 17-17 at home. They've lost 3 of the last 4 at home. Chicago, San Antonio, Denver. They get the win against the Bucks, but all in all, this is a bad homestand for the Warriors, and they've just been bad at home all year. If you're 17-17 at home and you're a playoff contender, that's a bad year. And so the Warriors dipped to 33-30. We talked about it, 1 game back now of the Lakers. Warriors are 10th in the West. They'd be at Crypto.com Arena in a one-off elimination game for trying to steal the 8 seed out of the 9-10 slot of the play-in tournament. Spurs ended a 3-game losing streak to the Warriors in the Bay. Spurs actually won at Chase in 2022. The season series is tied at 1, and the Warriors still have a couple of games to go in San Antonio. Monday night, and then they go back on March 31st. So the Warriors still with a chance to get 2 more wins against the Spurs, but tonight's going to be one they lament. In 3 of the last 4 games, the Warriors have allowed 125 points, at least 125 points. The defense has really dipped, and they got to figure the defense out. Offense not good in the first half for the Warriors tonight as they score 43, and the Warriors are 0-4 in the 4 games that Steph has not played in. Minnesota, OKC, tonight at Chase, all 3 of those, and then at Milwaukee back on January the 13th. Klay Thompson, a game-high 27, second straight game with at least 25, and the 23rd 20-plus point game, 5th off the bench. So Klay's been bringing it off the bench here over the last few weeks. We talked about Kuminga, his 18th 20-point game, as Kuminga scored 19 of his 26 in the 4th. Pretty bad for 3 quarters, pretty good in the 4th, but the Warriors never truly with an opportunity to make a run in the 4th quarter. And Trace Jackson-Davis got his 4th career start, 11.6 boards, 1 steal, 3 blocks, 11th multi-block game, excuse me, for Trace Jackson-Davis. Final thoughts to you, Greg Silver, before we end it here. At Harmonic Brewing. Oh, yeah, totally fine. Final thoughts to you, Greg.
Yeah, I usually try to keep it pretty reasonable and grounded following all of our games, whether that's a win or a loss. I do feel semi-confident in the statement that I think the Warriors are probably going to lose every game they play until Steph comes back. If they're able to
even
respond Monday, that's the one where I'm like, maybe. But you're not beating Dallas and you're not beating the Lakers if he doesn't play. I'd be very, very surprised if that happens. Monday's a maybe. A maybe.
I'm gonna bet you a beer right now, and you don't have to take the bet. I'm gonna bet you a beer the Warriors win Monday.
Yeah, I don't want to be on the air on the record as the guy that's picking against the Warriors in hopes of getting a beer, but
again, you can. There's no cost to you. No cost to you other than that. But I'm just saying it's there for the taking. It's a free beer should the Warriors lose. I mean, you're not going to be rooting for it because you're not going to root for it. But I'm just saying, right now, I'm going on record. I'm betting Greg a brew of his choice, or a beverage of your choice, that
chocolate milk
Warriors are winning
per Just Dubs this morning.
Whatever you want. I'm calling a Warrior win on Monday. You can take it or not take it.
Okay, you know what? Fine, I'll take it. Regulator says take the bet, easy money. That's funny. Yeah, you know what?
Wow.
I'm going to take it because that's fun.
Regulator says take the bet, easy money. Wow. That's an easy bet. Take it. Wow. And your Regulator is not alone. Daniel Shabazz, high stakes, LOL. That's so funny. Regulator, yeah, take the bet. All right. Yeah, Bill M. chiming in late. I'm betting on a Warrior win Monday. We've got a friendly wager. My guy Greg Silver, he's taking the Spurs on Monday in San Antonio to beat the Warriors again. I'm taking the Warriors to win. I don't care if Wemby plays or not. Warriors are winning Monday.
I hope you are right, good sir. I hope you are right.
Warriors are winning on Monday, but I'm with you as far as the rest of it goes. They aren't beating anybody else without Steph. Like, yeah, if Steph ain't coming back to the next home game, they're going 1-2.
Yeah,
they're going 1-2.
Other than that, I'll just say, like you did with the Boston game, you got to find a way to flush it, as disgusting as that was, and you got to come back and you got to play harder. I expect a way better effort on Monday, if anything else.
Bill M is still stuck on Federer. Who cares about Federer? He's an all-time great, man. Federer's an all-time great. What are we doing? Again, if tennis ain't your jam, that's fine. But, I mean, Roger Federer is at all-time freaking great. Number 3 all-time in major wins after Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal, 24-22-20. So, yeah, I mean, he's an all-time. He's an all-time great. Pete Sampras and
Uncle Looney's on your side, by the way.
And Bjorn Borg rounding out the top 5 in terms of all-time Grand Slam championship tournament wins. So, yeah. I mean, Federer's on the Mount Rushmore of tennis, in my mind. Yeah. So, anyway, I digress. And no, I'm not a Michael Connell either, but Federer's a big freaking deal, man. That dude's a superstar. So, anyway, we'll end it on that note. Great stuff. Do we need to thank anybody else in our San Francisco studios tonight, or was it just all you all the time?
We had Kyle Haar able to cut some sound for the first half, so big thank you to Kyle Haar.
Kyle Haar, yeah, huge thank you to Kyle Haar, doing a great job. One of my faves, as I've gotten to kind of meet everybody here over these last few months in San Francisco. So thanks to Kyle, thanks to Greg, thanks to Austin Scott, who was covering the postgame press conferences over at Chase tonight, and he's kind of waiting for me to be able to give him a ride. So he's kind of no cider for Austin tonight. I thought he was going to have a cider. He usually has a cider, but he wasn't in a sipping mood tonight, Greg.
Or a different kind of cocktail that Greg Papa likes to really pin on him.
Yeah, not available here, unfortunately.
Dang.
Otherwise he would have ordered one. All right, we digress. Final numbers on the poll question of the night, by the way, as I run through it here. Under 25 is the leader. We'll revisit this maybe on Monday. How many games does this Warriors team win fully healthy but without Steph? 39.5% of the vote says under 25, which I think is the correct answer. We will talk to you Monday. Right around 7:15, 7:30. It's the rematch. It's the Warriors and the Spurs from San Antonio. This has been Dubs OT with JD. Thank you to everyone on YouTube and Twitch and X. 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Peace.
Disappointing homestand for the Dubs. And any kind of elevation in the Western standings, they let 2 games slip away that are going to cost the Warriors in a big way.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
We got Steph Curry.
Tonight solidifies it. You can't count on this Warriors team, Greg, to beat any team in the NBA if Steph Curry's not playing. That goes for tonight. It goes for Monday. It sure as hell goes for a game against Dallas on Wednesday and the Lakers a week from tonight.
Great! I hate it! The only flow that's going is down a toilet.
A lot of games have stung this year. We've had a lot of heartbreaking losses.